Hey friends, summer's coming, and just like we do some preparations for summer with maybe working out a little bit more, maybe eating a little cleaner to get our bodies ready for summer, I want to help you get your business ready for summer. So last week I held a virtual workshop called the Summer Ready Success Workshop, and I had such great feedback from this, and maybe you missed it. And so I wanted to let you know that I have the replay up for you to go and watch, go and learn how to have balance with your family, with your self-care, with your just busy summer schedule, have strategies to boost your productivity and maximize your summer success. So you want to go to martinewilliams.com/summer. And this is where you're going to be able to watch the virtual training. You have a guide that goes along with it to help you actually implement the strategies that you learn. So again, go to martinewilliams.com/summer and let's get you summer ready for success. Welcome to the Mompreneur Life Remix podcast, where you will learn how to remix your mompreneur life so that you can win at work without losing yourself in the process. Hi, my name is Martine Williams, and I am your host and CEO, your Chief Encouragement Officer. And this podcast is your one-stop shop to creating a burnout-proof life and business and elevating your clarity, confidence, and courage. Friends, it's time to say goodbye to being the yes girl and hello to creating healthy boundaries, healthy mindsets, and healthy habits. Your next breakthrough starts here. This is the Mompreneur Life Remix podcast. Let's do this. Well, hey friends, I cannot wait to introduce you to our Turquoise Talk guest today. It's an honor to have her on the show. She has been a very influential person in my business and life success. She was the person, you meet those people, you see them and you're like, oh, I want to do what she's doing. Like she is who I want to become, not like in every way, but like seeing her success, seeing how she ran her business. Like she was just the person that I wanted to learn from. And she was so gracious to kind of take me under her wing and teach me all her ways and to help me find my own way as well. And so really excited to introduce you to Jenny Hillenburg. So some of you who are listening know who this is, but some of you don't. So let me tell you a little bit about her. She was the first consultant with 31 Gifts. Many of you know that's who I was in direct sales with for 16 years, one of the largest direct sale businesses in the US. Her loyalty and perseverance transformed her from a bashful, stay-at-home mom into an entrepreneur and leader of 31's largest sales team. And she truly does have a passion for not only creating, but implementing systems to help women find work-life balance and success. And she has definitely paved the way for so many. I think I shared on the episode, like we all need a Jenny story. Like we need that person that helps us to see that it's possible, helps us to grow in our own belief. And so we talk about life, we talk about entrepreneurship, we talk about systems for success. So you're going to love this episode. So let's dive in, friends. Hey, friends. Well, I'm so excited for our Turquoise Talk guest today. The Jenny Hillenburg. I am so excited that you're going to be on the show today and just so many questions and so many fun things to talk about. So thank you for taking the time to come on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Yes. So for people who don't know you, which to me, it's like, who doesn't know who the Jenny Hillenburg is? But, there's a great big world out there of mompreneurs. So tell us just a little bit about you, your family, and, kind of how you got into being an entrepreneur.
Okay. So a little bit about me. I live in Soddy Daisy, Tennessee, which is just north of Chattanooga, Tennessee. I am an empty nester. So my husband and Jason are loving our empty nest life. And I think we've been empty nesters for about 5 years now. So we have 3 kids. They're all grown adults, 31, 26, and 23. And then we do have 2 grandkids. They're 9 and 7. And we love where we live. And how I got into being an entrepreneur was, specifically with 31, because that's really when it started. I did dabble in one other direct selling company before 31, but I would not call that an entrepreneur and experience. So, with 31, I went to church with our founder of 31, and I hosted a party for her when she very first started the company. And I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I just knew that I loved the products, and my kids were young then. So I was really looking for an outlet and a reason to get out of the house. And that is why I joined. And I just wanted a little bit of extra money. That's all I ever saw myself making with 31. So I just jumped in with both feet and started doing parties. And that eventually led into building a large business with 31.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been so cool to be, I mean, you and I, for those that are listening, y'all know I was with 31 for 16 years, and Jenny and I were peers for many of those years, someone I always looked up to. And there's always a mess, before the success. And I think it's really important for the mompreneur who's listening today, whether she's trying to grow and scale her business, or she's just thinking about starting a business, to hear like, we have some of the same struggles, right? Even though,
Yeah.
we've grown these successful business. So can you share with them, just for a relatability piece, of what were some of the messes, along the way before the success came up?
Well, I think it's kind of twofold. There's mess with growing the business, but mess with growing the business with a family.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as the family, it was really hard for me to find those boundaries. And, back then we didn't have these amazing podcasts and ways that we could go and learn from others. It was just hard. So we just kind of were winging it. You know that, you did it. And trying to put boundaries in place while loving this business and wanting it to grow, and just, it was just so exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But, I definitely have some regrets with my kids and not having those boundaries in place. So that's one piece of advice that I would have for any mom who is in business, trying to grow a business, is just having those boundaries in place and knowing that one day you're going to be an empty nester and you're going to have all the time in the world to do all the things. But as far as the mess in the business, messy doesn't even begin to cover it. Because back then, no one knew 31. We really had to do a lot of things to get our brand out there
Mm-hmm.
and for people to understand who we were, what we sold, and why we were unique. So, and then also with that, there was lots of growing pains with getting products and back orders and, finding people who wanted to join 31 and just actually growing the business. So
Mm-hmm.
there was many, many times through that growing pain process that I wanted to quit. It was too hard. It was too difficult. I just didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
But thankfully, I stuck with it.
And I think the challenges that you brought up are, like building the brand, helping people to understand like who we were, right? And what we offered. Like those are the same no matter what business model you're in, whether you're in direct selling or you're, a service provider, you're a coach, you have a brick and mortar. Like those are the three challenges that you have when you're starting and when you're trying to grow is, making sure you're out in front of people and letting them know that you're open for business, right? Letting them know that they can trust you to take care of them. So, whatever services you're providing or products, and just that brand awareness. So, if you're listening and you're not in direct sales, it's the same thing. No matter
Mhm.
what business you're building, you have to be willing to put yourself out there, which can be uncomfortable, especially in the beginning. I mean, I remember I didn't even know if I trusted the company because I didn't know enough about it, right? I had not
Yeah.
been in sales before. I had zero experience, kind of like you, and getting out there and like, okay, I'm talking about these products, but I don't even know yet about the company. Is it a company that I can trust? And sometimes you just have to be willing to just push through that, right? And just go with it and see what happens.
Yeah. I think that's one of the hardest parts of building a business is getting your name out there and getting people to trust you, which means you have to be consistent. You have to persevere through those hard times when, you make an Instagram post or Facebook post or whatever, and you don't get very many likes because people don't know who you are yet. So you just got to keep at it and keep at it and keep sharing. And, eventually you'll catch on.
Yeah. I want to set up my next question with kind of a story. And I feel like you've heard me share this story before, my Jenny story, but maybe you haven't, or maybe it's just been a really long time, but I remember being on one of our calls, our leader calls back in the day when it was just like a few of us on a call with Cindy. And I really, at that point, hadn't really caught the vision. And I think it's really important for those that are listening that, Marshawn Evans, you've heard me talk about her and her devotional.
Yeah. I love her devotional.
It's so good. One of her questions she posed the other day was, what is the number one thing you think you need to do to make the quantum leap in your income? And my response was, she wasn't asking me personally. She was asking this on social. And I said, you have to believe that it's possible. And once you believe it, then you'll see it. That's from DeWitt Jones. I know he's one of your favorite people too.
Mm-hmm.
Because then when you believe it, then you see it, then you go and do it, right? And so being on that call and hearing you share that you had just bought a car in cash for Jason and your family, like that was my defining moment and my turning point in the business to be like, Jenny's just like me. Like, she's just like me. She's a mom who's trying to provide for her family. She's trying to grow this business. She's figuring out along the way. And I think we have to find those people. So thank you, number one, for being that person for me, because when I got off that call, I was like, okay, if Jenny can do it, I can do it. She's an ordinary person doing extraordinary things. And I think that's really important for a mompreneur to hear, because we compare so much, right? And we lack confidence along the journey. And we think we have to be, at least my mindset was, I have to be this really talented, special person to make significant income in this business. I didn't have the belief yet. And you sharing your story gave me that belief. And so what was kind of a turning point for you in kind of catching that vision or catching that belief? Either it was something that happened, or maybe it was a person that, like, you were that person for me. Was there someone or something for you that helped you to kind of capture that belief that it was possible?
So yeah, when I first started, I didn't have anyone that was my mentor in direct selling. So it was hard for me to understand and catch that belief. So I do remember we had a guest at one of our early national conference, which there was probably not even 100 people there. And she was with another direct selling company, and she shared her income that she made the previous year, and it was $80,000 that she had made.
Mm-hmm.
And I could not believe it. So this was very early in the days of my business, probably 2005, 2006, somewhere around there. And I had no idea that that was possible in direct sales. So that was when, something in me switched, and I started to understand, if I can put more time and effort into this business and really try to grow it and really share it with others, then I could potentially have that too. So that was, and I'll never forget, I don't know why this stands out in my mind, but one of my first big paychecks was $7,500. And it was when we actually had paper paychecks.
Yes.
For the direct deposits. And you'd have to go sign it and go to the bank and cash it. Of course, we didn't have mobile deposit either. So that was a whole thing. But it was $7,500. And I just remember where I was when I'm looking at that check, and I was like, oh my God, like, this is just unreal. And that was just a moment that has always stood out to me also.
Yeah. Yeah. So for those that are listening, like, who can be that person for you, or what is that moment? And maybe you've forgotten that moment. Maybe you haven't had that moment yet, but I do believe belief is the number one. You have to believe that it's possible, because if you don't, then, Jenny and I can sit here on this podcast and give you all the strategies and the systems and all of the things which we're going to talk about, but it won't matter if you don't believe it's possible for you. Right.
Yeah.
If you're thinking, oh, it's only for those kind of people that work, 24/7, 365, or that person who has that kind of personality. I mean, you and I have different personalities, right? But we both have been able to be wildly successful. And so it's creating this success your way and utilizing your strengths. But you have to kind of catch that belief first. I think that's the piece that we skip sometimes, or we don't, we lose focus of what the why is. I remember, my kids were babies. I mean, Lucas was 1 when I started. I remember also hearing you talking about these chunks of time that you had to work your business because your kids were older. And I just remember dreaming of the day that I would have these large chunks of time because at that time I was working in the nooks and crannies of time, right? When they're
Yeah.
napping or when they're, entertained on the TV. Yes, I used TV to entertain my TV, or my kids back then, so I get some work done. Don't judge.
We all did.
We all did. Now it's iPads and iPhones and all those things, but no shame there for sure. But I just remember thinking that, I needed to have more time to work my business, but I was willing to do what I could in those moments. And so, you might be the person who does have littles right now, and it's a season, right? I mean, you remember it's a season, it's a hard season, but one day will come where you're empty nesters like Jenny, right? And you're looking back and you're, being challenged in different ways. Parenting is hard. Entrepreneurship is hard. And there's different
Yeah.
seasons of that hard, right?
Yeah. I have a friend who she actually owns a lash and brow place
Mhm.
locally. So that's where I go and I get my lashes and brows done. But I want to use her as an example because it's not a direct selling
Mhm.
example, but in the way that she's grown her business, like she had the vision. She started with just herself, and then she started teaching people how to do lashes and brows, same
Mhm.
concept as direct selling.
Right.
And you have to take that time to teach someone to do what you're doing so you can grow.
Yep.
And then she taught one, then she taught another. And I think now she's got four working for her. She's been able to expand her storefront and add on more services. But then recently this year, her daughter started kindergarten, I think it was. And so she completely changed her schedule to
Mhm.
meet her daughter's school schedule. So she's put that boundary in place as her season of life has changed. So now, her cutoff is in time to go pick up her daughter and she's done for the day. And
Yeah.
I just love that because she is a successful businesswoman. She's who we are talking about. But she also has a mentor of another businesswoman that she and I both know. And I just think that that is so important. You have to have someone that you're modeling after and also someone to help you kind of hold yourself accountable. And, as you go through these different seasons and changes in your business.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Speaking of that, of mentorships and coaching, I mean, I know that you've had coaching over these years, and I have too. I mean, I'm a firm believer in coaching. I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I didn't have a coach or a mentor like you, or just someone to kind of walk alongside to help me in my blind spots, to help me to see, some new strategies or some just new ways of thinking, new ways of being. So, tell me a little bit about your coaching experience and the role that has played in being someone who's being coached in your success.
Yeah, so off and on throughout my 20 years in direct selling, I've had different coaches, and sometimes I haven't had a coach at all. So it just really depends on what I'm going through. I haven't been super consistent about it. But yeah, I do feel like it is so, so important. And recently, using you are my wonderful coach and have helped me so much just because just different things that were going on and just needed some accountability
Mhm.
and I think just a different set of eyes
Yeah.
in the way you look at my business now is like not the way I look at it. So you can give me advice. You're not emotionally attached to it.
Mm.
And it is just so, so helpful. So I do think that, whether you're paying for a coach or you just have that person that is your check-in person to help you stay on track. I always encourage my leaders to have accountability groups and have those people that you can bounce things off of. I think it's
Mhm.
just so, so important. And it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be the same business that you're in. So if you're like my lash girl, she doesn't have to just talk to lash people. It can be a business owner, a woman
Mhm.
business owner.
Yeah. 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 I think it's sometimes more beneficial to kind of get outside of your industry
Yeah.
and listen to, even again, if it's just taking someone to coffee that's in a different business, just to hear, and connect. I mean, you never know, you could be one connection away from a completely different business just because you stepped out of that industry and kind of met someone else. But just to hear how they do business, when I first did that and I went to my very first like out of direct selling industry like conference, my mind was so blown and so open to, oh my gosh, look at all of these different entrepreneurs. Some were in network marketing, some were in direct selling, some were coaches, and they were all some were brick and mortars, but just how they think and how they operate and the tools and the, things they were using. It just opened my mind, and really expanded the possibilities of how to do business. Because I mean, while business is the same, there are some tried and true things. It's just really encouraging to hear how other people are being successful in different industries. So I definitely recommend that too.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey friend, can I give you permission today? Like for real, your own permission slip. Permission to get clear, to cut out the noise. Mostly the noise that is going on around in your own mind, in your own head. It's just swirling. And you're asking yourself questions like, why am I stuck? Why am I frustrated? Why am I not making progress on my goals? I want to invite you to a free clarity call with me where we're going to dive in and we're going to identify what are the 3 main issues that are keeping you stuck. Number 2, what are the mindsets around those issues that are actually keeping you from solving for those issues? It's not our skill sets, it's our mindsets that keep us stuck and hold us back. And then number 3, identifying what are your next steps. We all have a next step, and we have 100% responsibility for those next steps. Your only next step right now is to go to the show notes and book your free clarity call so that we can work through this. I'm believing in you, and I cannot wait to see you on our clarity call. So tell us a little bit about some strategies for success. I know you thrive in systems and you thrive in some structure and you have some, tried and true systems, maybe some favorite apps and things that you use on a daily basis. For the mompreneur that's listening today, what are some tried and true strategies for success that you could share with them?
So yeah, systems is my thing and I love to share and talk about them. So one thing that I've been pretty consistent about for a while now is my Zoom schedule. So in my business, we're all virtual. So we do a lot of Zooms. So Mondays and Fridays are no Zoom days. So I just really stick hard to that because that way I can get work done if I need to run errands. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday might be lots of Zooms, but that's okay. That's just the way I plan my week and it works out great for me. So a couple of apps that I love. First, and if any of my leaders listen, they know this app because I talk about it over and over again. It's called Tick. So it's Tick, and it's an electronic to-do list. And it's the only way I know what I'm supposed to do when I sit down at my desk. So I took the time to write down all my tasks, which that does take a minute. And I think one of the best ways to even get started with that is to just have a piece of paper on your desk. And as you're working, write down every single task you do for about a week. Okay. And then you know what your tasks are. And then you can begin to enter them into Tick. And with that, you can assign Tick to remind you to do that task on a certain day. So if there's a day that you want to do marketing and it's Tuesday, let's say only the task with marketing pops up on a Tuesday. So it really helps you stay organized. You can link files and pictures and commonly used wording to each task. So it's a really great time saver. So Tick. And then Slack do you use Slack? Have you ever used?
I have different programs I've been in. They've used it,
Okay.
Used it. Yeah.
So I use Slack with my virtual assistant and it's a great way to stay organized. And so you're taking like tons of email conversations and you're putting them in Slack, but they're organized. It's hard to explain without visually seeing it. So if you're working with other people, if you have a team of people in your business, then definitely check into Slack. It is a great way to stay organized. And boards is another big thing that I use for my team. So boards is basically it's a one-stop shop to keep commonly used verbiage and pictures. So I'll use you for an example. You probably have pictures in verbiage that you post all the time or email out all the time, respond on an Instagram message. So you can actually store those words on boards with a graphic and easily post it from or share it from the keyboard on your phone. So you add boards as a keyboard on your phone. So that is so great for anyone that's on social, for those things that you're always saying over and over again. We all have that verbiage that we're using all the time. So those are my top three. I probably could come up with more, but I use those three every single day in my business.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll put the links to all of that in the show notes for those of you that are listening. And, I think a system that you use that's the most important thing, right? I know a lot of people, and I've done this where I've set up a system and then it actually worked the system. Like I'll never forget you and I being in a meeting. I don't know why this gets me so tickled, but you had like this, like, I don't know if you remember this, but like this really specific like checklist or something that you were using. And I asked you for it or something. And I wasn't using it. Like you gave it to me and I thought it was going to like solve all my problems. But I wasn't using it. And we were in a meeting one day and we both, you and I were binder girls and I opened the binder and it was sitting there and there was like nothing written in it. And she was like, "You're not using it." And I
That's
was
so
like,
funny.
"Yeah." I was like, "No, that sounds great, but I'm not using it." And
Well,
so
that's such a great point, though, because something that works for me may not
Mhm.
work for you. So,
Yeah.
you have to find the system that works for you. And some people are just the paper calendar people.
Hmm.
Like I will still have, I'll text someone about an appointment. They're like, wait, I got to get home and check my calendar. And I'm just like, what? I don't understand. You have a calendar on your phone. It follows
Right.
you everywhere you go. It's super easy. Um, but if that works for you, cool. That would
Yeah.
never work for me. I got to have it with me all the time. So, if the electronic to-do list is not for you, then write all your tasks on a in a Word document, print it out every Monday and
Hmm.
categorize it by day. I mean, there's tons of different ways to do it. It's just that you got to do it to stay organized, and it helps you when you have a system like your to-do list in place. You're going to be much more productive when you have to work in those pockets of time while the kids are sleeping or you're in the car rider line or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of kind of like giving it time and trying different things, one of the common things I'm hearing right now, with some other top leaders in direct selling that I'm coaching is just being resilient and, having people on their team that are just, I think we're just in this age of instant gratification, instant success. And, it takes time to build a business, whether you're in direct sales or you're a brick and mortar or you're building a lash business, whatever, like it just takes time for you to learn it and then for you to build it and then for you to grow it, right? And I think that's hard for some people that come in, especially if their idea of success is overnight, right? Like you see someone who's been wildly successful and they think, well, that just happened overnight. It did not.
Mm-hmm.
For most people,
Right.
it did not, right? We see their highlight reel. We don't see what actually went on behind the scenes. So for someone who's listening, like I do think resilience is a really key characteristic of a entrepreneur, because to me, my definition of resilience isn't bouncing back, but growing through the challenges. So can you share just a little bit how you have stayed motivated and how you have been able to be resilient? Because you've had a lot of challenges personally and professionally. We both have. We've kind of gone through a lot of them together and we're still here, right?
Yeah.
So can you kind of share a little bit about that?
Yeah. I think having a reason why you're doing what you're doing is really important. So at 31, we call it our why. And that always is changing. But I think any business owner needs to have a why. Like why are you starting this business? What is it going to do for you in your life? So for me, that's changed throughout the years. Back in the early days, it was just to have that extra few $100s a month. It has then changed. And there was one point I wanted to put in an above ground pool in our backyard for my
Right.
kids and for
Hmm.
us. And so that was a huge motivator. And then, making sure my kids went through college with no debt, paying for my daughter's wedding with no debt, just things like that throughout my career, it's changed. So currently it is financial freedom, and not having to use an alarm clock is huge for me. I like to be able to wake up when I want to wake up and work when I want to work. And
Hmm.
the ability that I have to do that with 31 is just amazing for me. So having that, I think, knowing why you're doing what you're doing will help you go through those hard times.
Yeah.
So that to establish the why is the first step. And then understanding that, yeah, it's going to be difficult and you're going to go through those hard times. Like we all have it. I don't think there's one business person on this earth that hasn't gone through lots of challenges. So having that why will help you get through those hard times. And then I think, you know, just understanding that hard times are going to happen and you just have to kind of, I don't know, go through the waters of that and understand there is going to be the other side. And I think
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that so many times in my 20 years with 31 that I know that. And, you know, a lot of people like these days something will happen and everybody's like crying and not crying, complaining would be a better
Mm-hmm.
word
Yeah.
about what's happening. And I'm like, yeah, we've already been through that. Like, it's going to be fine. They're going to take care of us. No worries. Like, just don't worry about it. So
Yeah.
for me, like I can get through those harder times easier now because I've been through so many difficult times in my career. So I think it's just that understanding that we all go through it. It's
Yeah.
going to be okay. And just to keep pushing forward. And again, that's where an accountability partner or mentor will come in handy too, is having someone to help you through those hard and difficult times.
Yeah. Yeah. I think back to like just mindset, just how important that mindset is when you're going through the hard time. I choose to see that, I'm either going to get the result that I want or the lesson that I need. And so when I fail, right, when things don't work the way I want them to, whether I had control over it or not, there's always a lesson. And I always just choose to see those hard times as, okay, what am I supposed to learn here
Yeah.
that either I can take into this next season or move forward with? But if you are always just seeing the obstacle versus the opportunity, then it is really easy to kind of get down into that funk, and we've all been there. So I'm not saying if you're there, there's no shame in that. It's just, how can you shift your perspective a little bit and your mindset into seeing, you have 100% track record of making it through hard times. You're
Yeah.
still here, right? You have 100% record. And so those are just some thoughts that I choose in those moments of adversity and challenge and where I'm really having to be resilient is, this is a challenge. I see it, but I also see an opportunity for growth here. And so what do I need in this moment? That's a really key question, I think, to ask yourself because it's different for everyone when you're in a challenging spot. Like, what do you need in this moment? Do you need to just walk away, close your laptop down and walk away and go be with like a friend or go be by yourself? Or, do you need to get off social media? Like right now I'm on a social media break and that's just something I felt led to do. I'm not in a funk or anything. I just wanted to experiment and see what would it be like, to not have that. So I think it's just important to what's your mindset and how can you choose more positive, productive thoughts in those moments when you're trying to build your resiliency.
Yeah.
So I want to ask this question about burnout because I do like to ask each guest about burnout since it's something I'm really passionate about helping entrepreneurs. So if you've experienced burnout, I'd love to know just how did it show up for you? I know for some people it's a physical thing. Some people it's more of an emotional thing. Sometimes it's both. And what did you do to kind of help work yourself out of that burnout?
Yeah. I actually go through that, I feel like a couple of times a year where I just am like, I need a break. And
Mhm.
whether that's just, taking some time off at home or it's time for a vacation, just to get some rest my mind, just take a break because we need that. Recently, when I was going through that, my most recent was probably last September, August, and that's when I reached out to you because I was really feeling very overwhelmed with just lots of things, and I needed a sounding board.
Mhm.
And so you have fit that role perfectly and amazing for me. But I do think like just knowing, recognizing the signs of it. And I think
Mhm.
it's really obvious when it starts to happen. You're
Mhm.
feeling overwhelmed. You're very stressed out. Like everything that's happening is just upsetting you. And so recognizing the signs and then knowing what you need to do. And for most of the time for me, it's I got to walk away. I need a break. And that
Mm-hmm.
might be a couple of days. It might be a week. Sometimes it might be more than a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why systems are good, because when you have good systems in place, then you can really take that break, and you can, whatever you have to do, you can do just like really super quick, just to keep things afloat. So it doesn't appear like you're burnout and taking a break.
Yeah. 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 So what is it that you need in the moment? Instead of, I think there's a lot of shame around feeling overwhelmed, or asking for the help that you need, like you did. There's a lot of like, well, I should just be able to do this. I hear this from my clients when I'm talking, like, I should have just been able to, why am I not able to do this on my own? Right. I'm a grown woman. Why
Hmm.
can't I just like pull myself up by my big girl panties and deal with it? And that's just a lot of pressure to put on yourself to do that. I mean, you wouldn't expect a Olympic champion to be an Olympic champion on their own, right? They have a
Yeah.
coach, they have sideline teammates that are cheering them on, picking them up when they fall. And yet, I think as women, sometimes we put that expectation on ourselves that I should just be able to do all of these things all by myself and have a smile on my face all the time and
Yeah.
not feel pressured. And it's just a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves. And so I appreciate your honesty there and just being willing to ask for the help that you need. To me, that shows real strength. It doesn't show weakness. To me, it shows strength that you were
Yeah.
courageous to ask for the help that you need.
Yeah. And I also think if you're fitting in self-care on a regular routine, that
Mm-hmm.
it may help prevent some of the burnout. And I think as entrepreneurs, that is one thing that goes out the window at the very beginning, is taking
Mm-hmm.
care of yourself and making sure you have time for you. So whatever that looks like, that could be so many things, and making sure it's scheduled in. For me, what my biggest self-care is doing Pilates 3 times a week, that. And you know, a lot of people will say, "Well, I don't have time to go work out." Well, it's
Mm-hmm.
just because you're not making the time, you're not scheduling it. And the only way that schedule works for me is if I sign up for a class. It takes me 2 hours, from 30 minutes to get there, hour for the class, and 30 minutes to get home. So it's 2 hours 3 times a week. That's a big commitment for
Mm-hmm.
me as a work at home person. So, but I know, like, that's what I need. I mentally need that. I need to check out. I need to go somewhere where I'm not talking about my business. We're talking about whatever is happening in the world. But it's also good for me to feel physically, just like, just spending time on that physical part of my body. It makes me
Mm-hmm.
feel good about myself.
Yeah, 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 for sure. That is such an important piece when you're trying to do all the roles, the mom hat, the wife hat, the CEO hat. We do lose ourselves in the process,
Yep.
a lot of people. And I've been there, which is why I'm kind of on mission to help women not do that, because there is a better way. It's not about hustling 24/7, 365. It's finding that harmony between working and then also working on yourself, because
Yeah.
this. I mean, your business is only as healthy as you are, right? Your parenting is only as healthy as you are. Your marriage is only as healthy as you are. And if you're not investing into that, you can't show up as the mom and the wife and the CEO that your family deserves, you deserve, and your business deserves. And it's a mindset shift too, right? Just
Yeah.
to understand it and see it that way.
Yep. For sure.
So thank you for bringing that up. So tell me, like, looking ahead, what are some future aspirations and goals you have for your business? Like, what are you most excited about right now? And what are you excited about to see happen?
Well, I am, like, currently in 31. We're about to launch a new catalog. So we're super excited about that. Like, that
Yeah.
reveal is actually today, and
Oh,
it's a
that's
beautiful
fun.
catalog. So I'm super excited about that. Yeah. And I've been recently doing podcasts, and I just love doing it. I love being able to share my story with
Hmm.
others. And it took me a long time in my career, a long time, to accept that the story that God gave me is something that other people may want to hear.
Hmm.
So I've been really focusing on doing podcast and being able to share my story, and hopefully help other mompreneurs out there and entrepreneurs, and just giving some encouragement and advice. So yeah, that's been one of my big focuses lately.
Yeah. Isn't it so funny how our brains work like that? Like, you have so much experience and so much knowledge and like just so much to give to others who are either beginning or maybe you're even at the same level, as you, and our brains just like to offer up, but it's not enough, you know,
Yeah.
or, I don't know. It's just crazy how our brains like to offer that up. And a lot of times it's because our brain's number one job is to keep us safe. Right. And maybe being on a podcast doesn't feel safe for you, or like getting up on stage and speaking. Like, I know there's still things that I'm putting myself out there to do. My brain's like, nope, that's not keeping you safe. So let's just hold off here. And so it just likes to offer up all of these lies, that are just not true. I mean, you have so much to give. And I've been so excited to watch you on this journey, from really that one of the first times you shared it on the main stage, your story, into now branching out and getting on podcast. And you really do have so much to offer. And stories are what inspire other mompreneurs. Your story was the one that, helped me catch the vision. And who would I be today, right? Where would I be today as an entrepreneur if you weren't willing to share that story on that call? And so that's why I love podcasting, and I love bringing guests on, because there's someone listening today who needed to hear what you had to say, and it may be the turning point for them. So thank you for being willing to share that, and maybe put yourself into some uncomfortable situations on different podcasts. I mean, you and I know each other, so it's super comfortable, but a lot of times you don't know the host,
Yeah.
and it can be a little unnerving at first, but I appreciate you sharing all that. So any final thoughts as we wrap up? If you had an opportunity to talk to all the mompreneurs that are listening today around the world, like, what's the one thing you would want them to know or to understand?
Oh my gosh, I think we could have a whole nother podcast on just that one question. I think, figuring out that schedule that's going to work for you, and trying to stick to it. I always tell my team to try something for 3 months.
Mm,
And, if you say you're going to do it, just do it for 3 months, no matter what happens. And then if it doesn't work after 3 months, then reevaluate and make the adjustments to it. So, try to stick with a schedule somewhat. And it's always going to be changing, especially if you have young kids at home or you're running the roads for soccer, baseball, softball, whatever. But that would be one thing. And I am a classic overthinker. And, I've really realized that in the last few years. So I've tried to really stop doing that so much, and trying to think that I have to have everything in order before I launch something, and just maybe I just have one or two things in order and just jump in and see what happens. And, there's a lot of success in doing it that way, instead of because if you try to get everything all lined up before you go do something, it's going to take you forever.
mm-hmm.
And then the idea is gone and you've
Right.
moved on to something else. So,
Yeah.
and I think another thing, let's see, I told you this could be an hour. Another thing would be to keep investing in yourself and putting yourself first. And that could be like what we talked about, self-care, but also listening to podcasts or finding some trainings that you need to focus on for maybe those 3 months that you're kind of focusing on whatever. I like to switch up with the calendar year. So every quarter, switching up my goals and reevaluating what I had the previous 3 months, but always investing in yourself, because you will never stop learning. I've been doing this for 20 years. I just hired Martine as a coach. I'm constantly learning and investing in myself because I want to be a better version of what I am today. So I think maybe I'll just stop there, because I
I love it. Those are so good. I love the last thing you just said. So thank you again for taking the time to come on the show and share your story and your expertise and all of your tips. Where can people connect with you if they want to find out more about you?
So I have a website. It is jennyhillenburg.com. So you can go there. And I also have a freebie with my top 5 favorite systems that I've learned over the last 20 years. Some of them I talked about today. So definitely check that out. And you can also find me on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll put the links to all the things in the show notes so they can be reaching out to you or just connecting with you. And again, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was super fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate you so much.
You're welcome. Well, that's a wrap, friends. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I really hope it met you right where you are and gave you some encouragement for your day. Could you do me the biggest favor and leave me a rating and review? Seriously, it's the best way for you to support the show. And while you're there, be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. Thanks again. And until next time, I am believing in you always.